Paul Kranzte, who's travelled over from Linz, Austria. Thanks, Paul.
Good afternoon. I want to introduce you to my work, which is published in the book Land of Milk and Honey. In this book, I was photographing my neighbor for about 2 years. I lived door by door with them. Actually, this is my neighbor. Everything started when I was flat hunting in October 2001. I was looking for somewhere really inexpensive to live. I just started university and I had to save money for other things. So I found a few rooms in a townhouse on the top floor, in a townhouse in the city center, with a communal toilet on the corridor. These rooms were in stark contrast to the doctor's surgeries on the ground floor. But actually in Austria, this is very common that the top floors are still like they used to be 50 years before and of the townhouses, and the ground floors, they are really quite expensive, but the top floors are quite cheap. So I'd been living there for almost a year before I started to photograph my neighbors. But then suddenly, after I got to know them better, I got really interested in how they live, and especially when I visited them the first time. So these were single-room apartments, but they were not. His name is Tony, her name was Aloysia, and they were not a couple. Everyone had his own room, but she spent all the time in his room. So they were sitting there most of the time. So after visiting them a couple of times, I was really impressed by the room and by them. There were so many things in this room lying around, mixing up with each other, like personal things, photographs or documents, shoes, rubbish, advertising, newspapers, things like that. So she is entering the room here. She is entering the room from the floor. I will just switch through the book now and talk about the pictures. Yeah, and on the one hand, I wanted to photograph themselves, and on the other hand, I was really interested in the still lifes that I found in this room. I really found them like that, and they reminded me. They looked like installations sometimes, like this picture. There are three alarm clocks in these pictures, and it's surrounded by rubbish, but he has Twinings, tea, and golden smart cigarettes. Also, it's a phenomenon that people who lose control about their life, they surround them by clocks without being aware, because a clock is something really constant. So she never left the house actually. Just since I know her, she left the house one time. We will see it later, when she fell down on her beer bottles. She is an alcoholic. And the beer for her was delivered by Tony and by myself. This is the floor, the top floor. You can see the sink. Now we would not. Now everybody had his own sink in his room. But in old times, this would be also not just the communal toilet, also the communal sink on the floor. Actually, I like her. She looks so tiny here, and that's how she most of the time was dressed, with these slippers and with a coat like that. That's inside her room. Next to the heater, she has lined up her napkins, her tissues to dry them. And that's inside Tony's room again. So what I find very interesting is how our bodies are mixing up with these personal things, with rubbish, with rotten food, with rotten fruits, and also with these messages in between, with the typography which is on the newspapers and things. And I mostly photographed it in black and white, but I also wanted to use color because after taking black and whites of them for maybe a year or almost, I started to make some color films, and I was really surprised. I was really surprised how they looked. It was just a big surprise. So I always put in between the black and white pictures color photographs, as I think they really surprise one. And especially this one, because after all this rubbish and all this dirt and all these rotten things, I think this is like, somehow this is just hands getting washed, so it's quite like a ritual, like a ritual almost, like a washing ritual. Yeah, I accompanied him to go to the supermarket. And his room was constantly changing. It was really like a living installation. And the flower images, which we can see here on the pillow, they appear again and again through the whole story. She was drinking between 6 and 12 bottles of beer a day. It depended how much she had at home, how much we got her. That's the room of another neighbor. Actually, everyone who lives in this floor appears at least once in the book. But the focus is on Tony and Aloysia. Yeah. This photograph, if I'm exhibiting it, I'm printing up some of them really big, like this one. It's 100 centimeters and 150 centimeters high. So her head is about this size then, which I like a lot actually. And he is sitting there like a smiling Buddha somehow. Or like a hermaphrodite, as you want. I'm standing inside my room, and she is leaning against my door. She came knocking at my door very often, sometimes many times a day. Sometimes I was already annoyed by it because she kept knocking for 10 minutes. So, yeah, this was one of these times. She was really in a bad condition then. She always was very desperate. Yeah. The door, which you can see behind this, I think this is the toilet, which we all shared. That's another woman living on this floor. I couldn't resist not to take this picture. I like her leggings. It's like a chessboard, which leads to the point between her legs. That's her. She's also still living there. Yeah, and he always had to fight with his physical condition. He was really a nice guy, and he still enjoyed life, even though he really sometimes looks really in a bad condition. He still enjoyed life. Also, she still enjoyed life, but he always had to fight with his condition. And what he really wanted to avoid was not being able to live on his own anymore. That was his biggest fear. So. Here we have his teeth. His teeth are lying next to an invitation to the poll, to the elections, and next to the movie program of the Austrian channel. She has 2 beds in her room. She uses the one where she's sitting on. The other one is empty since her not husband, but her friend died, so it's just like a place to store things now. Sometimes I went over to him and we watched movies and drank some beer. Actually, at the very beginning I was asking them if I can make photographs of them. It was a question one time, but I mean for me this was the motivation actually, to go there very often. But I think it was not in the focus of our relationship, the fact that I was taking photos. Also, the camera was not mentioned anymore. I just snapped. And here again, first of all, we can see even more watches back there, up there in the corner. And somehow, for me, I can really see how he still is fighting. He does not want to give up. I mean, everybody can see that he's really fucked, and it's really difficult for him. I mean, he just can't take care of himself anymore, but he still wants to get in the program and fix the TV even. And yeah. Yeah, there are so many logos of shops, of supermarkets, of brands. This is photographs, his personal photographs done years before, showing him in pubs and things like that. He showed them to me. Yeah, that's the one we saw before. After that, I realized that she didn't wear shorts. She was naked. She turned around, said goodbye, and I saw that she didn't wear shorts. Yeah. She just came out of the toilet, actually. Yeah. Yeah, and he had a problem with his feet. One time they wanted to cut his feet. He was smoking a lot, and so one time they even wanted to cut his feet, but then he just went home. He just went away from hospital. And somehow it looks like the foot of an elephant or something like that. Yeah, she is transporting her beer towards her room. There were always many doors, opening, closing. It was very narrow and lots of doors all the time. Also, you could hear it. If I was in my room, when I was in my room, I could hear every movement on this floor. Always doors opening, shutting. Yeah, again, we have a flower image here. Also, I thought I wanted to use the color film to show also the beautiful colors in this room of the old clothes and everything. The headline next to the crossword says, industry or economy demands body tax. Yeah, this picture is also taken from his window. So this is his view during winter 2004, I think. Yeah, or 2003. And yeah, actually about 90% of all the pictures were really taken in this room. Actually, this was the basic idea when I started, because I didn't know how long will I do this and everything and what will happen. The basic idea was just to focus on one room and, yeah, to focus on this room and just see what happens. Yeah, she's giving me money to get some beer for her. That's her wallet. Yeah, I like her slippers here with the teddy bears on them. Yeah. This was her favorite beer brand, actually. One time I brought a different one, because they were run out of that one, and she was not very happy. She was used to that one, so. Yeah, if a visitor, sometimes they had visitors. He once again trying to fix the television. Yeah, and back there we see another 3 watches, 3 clocks over there on the wall. It's like in an office, like New York, Tokyo. Yeah, and there were so many televisions in there. Another clock in the right corner, Mickey Mouse clock. So many televisions in there, and there was so many pictures coming in this room, not just from the televisions. I mean, the one below it broke, so I got a new one, and I was carrying it up for him, and he said just put it on the old one. And yeah, there were so many pictures coming into this room. Not just from the television, also from these newspaper, advertising newspapers, which people would put on the door. So pictures from a different world somehow. And these brands like Adidas, like this Adidas brand, which stands for something completely different, next to his legs, yeah. Yeah, and yeah, as I said, he always had really big problems, big health problems. But still had a lot of humor. Actually, I gave this camera to him and asked him to make some pictures, but he didn't make too many. Yeah, that's her wall up here. I mean, the stairs down there would be impossible for her. She never does that. She is living up there, and the stairs lead to a completely world outside. Yeah, but they still enjoyed good food, and they still had equality in their lives. I think, I'm sure. Yeah, that's the only time when she left the room, the floor, since I know her. That's after she dropped on her beer bottles. She fell on her beer bottles and hurt in the face, broke her nose, I think. So we had to take her to hospital. And we had to bring beer for her to the hospital. Yeah, of course, otherwise it would be a problem. Yeah. Yeah, here you see the consumption. I like the pictures in the back with the balloon. Yeah, she's sorting out the food which I bought for her. It's a fridge. I think it's the first time that we see this neighbor, this woman. She is also living on this floor. She's like a witch. She is always trying to harm Aloysia. And Aloysia is always afraid of her. All these people up there are people who have lost their contact or their touch to the rest of their family. All of them, they are alone. They just really have each other up there. So Aloysia and Tony, somehow they are a symbiote. But somehow she's part of the family, but nobody likes her. Yeah, here you see how narrow everything is. Yeah, I sometimes, well, I wanted to really have close-ups of his body. Like before we saw a close-up of his face. That's beyond her bed. So one day, I guess, she wore these shoes out there. So one day she decided to look glamorous. I also think that because in front of a mirror, you can still find like Vogue creams with a thick dust layer on them. But so a long time before she used all these things, before she went out. I mean, this is quite horrible for me because this animal looks in this plastic bag. It looks like as if it would have been killed in this plastic bag without air. It looks dead. Yeah, and he's wearing. I mean, I don't know if you can read it, but the logo on his T-shirt says "No problem." I thought that feet and hands are something, vulnerable of people. That's her hand and my hand, and also you can see my camera a bit. And now he really is, his situation goes really down and down. He really loses more and more control of his body and gets sicker and sicker. And so actually, one day I find him on the floor of his room with hit by a stroke, and lying in his own excrements. And we had to take him to hospital, of course. I mean, they then told us that he had a stroke, because when I found him, he said, no, I don't have to go to hospital. So we took him there. They picked him up, and he had suffered a stroke. So he was in hospital in intense care. That was about 1.5 years after I started to photograph, maybe a bit less. So he was in intense care, and it was clear that he will not be able to live on his own again if he survives at all. So, but he did pretty well. He recovered. But meanwhile, it happened very fast, and I was very surprised. Meanwhile, they emptied his room while he was in hospital, because they knew he will not live there again, so they have to clean it. They want to rent it again, of course. So that happened very fast, and suddenly I was in this empty room. And I was really surprised how everything looked, how big it was suddenly. Yeah, this is where the pictures used to hang. Yeah, they put his things for the garbage collectors. And that's him now, not now, then he went to an old people's home, and he really recovered, and actually it was quite good that he lives there now. She still lives there, and that's right now she might be sit there like this. I mean, I took this photo maybe 2 years ago now, or 1.5 years. But I see her every now and then, and I'm quite sure that right now she is sitting there like that in her room, while he's here in the park of the old people's home, and he's very well up again. And yeah, he has lots of fun with the people in the home, and yeah. And he sometimes goes back to visit her, so do I. Actually, I didn't think that he would survive this thing, and I mean, I never imagined that he would recover so well. That's the last photograph. That's my room when I was living there. Yeah. I mean, it looks quite similar to their room, but it's different things. And he gave the television to me, actually. Yeah. Okay, that's the book. Yeah.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks.
Got a question down front, please?
How did Tony and the woman react to the book? Did they like it? Did they see it?
Tony saw all of the photographs, and I didn't show it to them at the early stage. It would not have made sense for me to show them at the early stage when they were still living there, when he was still in this situation, to show him, look, that's you. So at the beginning, sometimes I gave them a nice photograph of them, But in the end, when he already moved out to an old people's home and recovered it and somehow made it, because he didn't give up, he made it, he survived, and he even increased his quality of life, then I showed to him the whole story. And I showed it to him in a way that he can be proud. But I also showed really those really pictures where he really looks dirty and in his room. Yeah. But I presented it in a way to him that he can be proud, because that's what I also think somehow. Yeah.
So you edited the photos before you showed it?
Before I showed it to him.
You edited it, you didn't give him a copy of the book, edited.
No, I showed him the whole book. Yeah. But within the book, it is like that you, at the end, you see that that he did it and he made it somehow, survived. Yeah. The woman, I showed her some. I didn't show her everything. You know, he was the main character for me. Yeah. I showed her most of the things, but I thought she will be disturbed, and he was the main character for me. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, actually, he also supported me in doing a book and things. He gave me the permission.
Okay.
Can I just over here? Can you? You said that the pictures have been exhibited. You were saying that you've blown them up quite big. Can you say more about how they appear in the gallery context, and what your feelings are about that?
Yeah. In the gallery context, I use 5 different formats, from very small, like this size, to 100 and 150 centimeters. And I put them on the wall not in blocks, but like if I would put them here, put the pictures on the table, put those together to a group which I think fit together. And 5 different formats actually. Very few big ones, some small ones, and some in between.
Do you think that there are any problems showing these in the gallery context? Are you aware of those issues?
Well, I like to show it in a gallery context. Actually, I don't think that there are any problems. It works very different to the book, because the book really leads you from the beginning to an end. But also in the gallery, when I have a wall, you usually come in from one side and you start looking like that. So also in the gallery, I can lead somebody through the story. So actually, I enjoy building up a show with these pictures. It always takes a lot of time, but it's fun.
Hi. I was wondering, 2 questions really. Do you like these people? And the second question is, what are you hoping we're going to gain from the work?
Pardon, what was the second?
Do you like the people, and what are you hoping that us as an audience will gain from the work?
First question, yes, I like the people. I mean, we got friends actually. We lived there together, and they were very warm-hearted towards me, really very warm-hearted. Actually, at the beginning, I thought that when I moved in, that they would be strange people, and maybe I thought, oh, strange neighbors and things. But they were really warm-hearted and normal, actually, and no freaks. And and what these photographs or this book could give to an audience, well, I mean, for me, they are just very interesting about how these people live there, and this is not something, I think we've seen maybe similar situations, but in another way, in a different way. Yeah, maybe in a more romantic way. So Well, I hope it's just as interesting as it is for me to see how they are living day by day and to see this room, actually.
Beyond the photographs, does the book give any sense of your relationship to the people?
There is a very short text written by myself, about 1 page, which is about, I mean, most of it, which is about the relationship between me and them. Most of what is in the text I already mentioned, like I'm describing how it was to be there and how it was to talk with them, how I met them, something like that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I'm not on my own here. I do find the work a bit problematic. And I think the only thing that, for me personally, would excuse that would be if there was a greater sense of yourself and your participation in their lives actually in the work. So that in some way, you know, the process of the making of the work was revealed in some way in the work itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because with the absence of that,
Yeah.
it just looks like another freak show to me.
Yeah. And what could that be?
Sorry?
What could that be? What you are talking about the absence
Well,
of...
I think the things that you talk about are interesting. You know, the way that you were actually involved in their lives and that you did have a relationship with them. But we don't see that in the pictures.
Yeah.
We get it from you listening to
Yeah.
you, but my problem is that,
Yeah.
you know, this work has a life
Mm-hmm.
outside of this room. And people looking at this book without the benefit of sitting down and talking to
Yeah.
you have no sense of the process that's involved. And therefore the images just look like, you know, they look exploitative, I guess.
We were thinking about, when we made the book, we were thinking about what should we include in the book. And, well, I just wanted to have the photographs on white pages, actually. And at the end, I want to have a short text which says how everything happened. For me, it's not so interesting how exactly the relationship between them and me was. For me, it's the photographs mostly. For me, it's really, like, for example, I was thinking about asking him to write something and things like that and put it in the book, maybe scan it from the piece of paper where he wrote it on and things like that. But then we decided not to do it like that, just put the pictures on the white pages. For me, that's better.
In what way is it better?
Pardon?
In what way is it better?
I don't need these. I don't want to see these attempts to make it more personal, to show it to. I mean, it should be in the photographs. And for me, it is actually.
Are there any final questions? There is.
I'm curious, going through the images, I think I got a great deal more from them without your sort of commentary. Because you just describing the literal surface of the image. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, really. You know, there wasn't sort of, you know, any particular insight on reflection as to why you've had this experience, and I would agree that, you know, I have trouble looking at these pictures without any sort of reflection from you.
Yeah.
And also, you said they're sort of warm-hearted people. I don't think alcoholic and warm-hearted people go together. I mean, I just don't think that exists. I think,
But
you know,
what was the last thing?
Okay, can I draw this to? It's warming up as the day goes on. Have you noticed? Which was maybe a kind of a plan. I think in terms of the backstage staff sorting out the video link for the next speaker, we should use this point for maybe a 25-minute, 30-minute recess, and then take off again in half an hour. Okay, thanks, Paul.
Hope to carry on, and you're always there to lend a hand in everything I do. That's the wonder of you. Come in.
Run with this. I'll be making a collection for my phone bill on the way out.
leave.
It was a very difficult time.
Mhm.
Yeah, there were 3 girls living in the same street in a very small town, and it wasn't the case of, okay, so if we don't get on very well one day, we'll go and find another friend, because although there are other people, it's a small community, so you have to kind of find a way of getting around it. And I guess we did, and you get on with it. I have, to be maybe unnecessarily honest, I have been quite concerned about my own role in the fact that they were not getting on, and what did I do trying to photograph them even if they were not getting on. But in a way, I think what I was trying to do is to at least get them together, and they were having a nice time, or we were having fun, or they were getting on with each other for that duration. So, but absolutely it's questionable.
So they led you to believe?
So they led me to believe.
Yeah, right. Coming back to this question of Ern, because at the close of the last session there was some kind of question in relation to Paul's work around ethics, and maybe this is something that you could all talk about, in different ways. For example, Wendy's work is kind of reflexive and about the nature of the relationship between the photographer and the subject, and it's a kind of reflexive documentary art practice where the kind of the products of both parties, the expressions of both parties are kind of set alongside each other in a way we can have see the dialogue between the two. Perhaps you could talk a little bit about when maybe some pictures have been edited out, or there have been difficult situations where you felt that you may have had to intervene, or...
Well, I think, sort of philosophically about this, that photography, by its nature, the way all of us practice it, is collaborative. Being a photographer, you have to collaborate with the world, and when I think about doing something like maybe the Black Self, White Self project, or which is people can say questionable, and it was highly emotional, and I could conceive of what I wanted, but I had to create a structure to get there, where I could bring people with me, so that their way of seeing what was included in the project. And I think that's not that unlike the way a photographer works in the world. And sometimes that works better than others, but I think when it works, it's like when Rineke shoots and something happens that she doesn't anticipate, even though she knows she's going to go where she goes and has a person, there's something always that happens. And I think that the best photography, includes that. That's the way I think of it.
Nice. Paul, would you like to maybe continue where the line of questioning is going?
The ethic question. Yeah, I was thinking in what different way I could have photographed my neighbors, and there are, for example, it could have been I didn't want to romanticize the situation. Doing that would be, for me, it would be that would have been a fault to romanticize his situation, which is not really romantic. So photograph him lighting a cigarette while it's snowing outside and in his comfortable room. That would be a bigger problem for me than to photograph it the way I did. I don't really like those I think it's a problem if a social reportage romanticizes something. It's a problem for me.
Could you give an example of?
For example, if I would have photographed my neighbor in a more romantic way, it would maybe the lighting would be different. It would be not such a harsh flash. It would be a bit more blur, and I would have photographed him in different situations which make it a more comfortable picture. But that would have been a problem for me from the ethic point of view, actually.
Right. So it was conceived as it is an art project from the.
Actually, yes.
Yeah, from the outside, but in dialogue with documentary rhetoric. But I suppose it doesn't necessarily mean that those kinds of questions shouldn't be asked.
Yeah, of course not. Of course not.
When you play with the kind of different genres of photography. So, well, maybe we could come back to that unless someone wants to sort of pick that up and kind of continue the questioning. Michael?
Immediately after the presentation, I was pretty much dumbstruck. I really did. Paul Kranzte's presentation, very uncomfortable images. Thinking about it for a bit longer, it occurred to me that a lot of what he's working with, from my point of view, is this trope of extremity. Here we have people pretty much in a situation that's almost the end of the road, pretty close to the end of their lives. And it's not a very pleasant scene to watch. And I think that when we look at things like that, we shouldn't have a knee-jerk reaction and say if it's not connected to some kind of social program, then it's immediately an issue of exploitation. I think there's a far more nuanced position that we really need to take here. And in thinking about that further, it occurred to me that in the context, say, of Austrian art, you have many examples of extremity as a trope for getting at a certain kind of truth. I'm thinking, for example, of the Viennese actionists. And I'm wondering, Paul, if there's something in that cultural shard that's part of your work or part of what you're thinking in the background.
I didn't think about the Viennese actionists when I was taking the pictures. What I was thinking is that Tony is a person who is losing control. Of course, he is old, and that's mostly the reason why he is getting so sick, because he is old and he would need more treatment. But the fact is that the person is losing control about his life completely, about his body and everything. And I don't think that this is so far away from a normal person. Even if there is an age difference, I don't think so. I think that most of people have experienced a different situation where they were about losing control about their lives because of other reasons, of course.
Do you want to wait for a mic?
The way in which the artist photographs the subject with their way of referencing the camera. So Rineke takes an image of a person who directly confronts the camera, so they're aware of it being there. So in turn, we feel that they're aware of their photo being taken and so aren't being exploited. And perhaps because Paul's works are as if he's an onlooker who is, well, as if the subject isn't aware